Phil Wade from Dalton Wade Real Estate Group, and today I'm joined with Valerie, Rob, and Lisa holding the camera. Today we're going to talk about the financing contingency. That's number 8 on the contract. Had a few instances this week where maybe the agent didn't really completely understand sort of how the mechanics of it work. So we want to, have a training on that because it is very, very important. And just to start, so the financing contingency. So your buyer has a contingency that if they don't get the loan, they get their deposit back. That's the contingency, okay? Just like the inspection contingency. So they get their deposit back. But the contingency is only valid for so many days, typically 30 days. There's a little blank. It says, right now the default, it used to be 45 days when they changed the contract in April. It's now 30 days unless you fill it in differently. So on day after the 30th day, your client no longer has the financing contingency anymore. It evaporates, it goes away, it disappears, nada, gone, later. So again, if your client doesn't have their loan, then they're basically hanging out there in the wind. And what happens a lot of times is when when they don't have the loan, or there's problems, or the lender's got issues, something's happening that is causing it not to sort of, come through underwriting clean, the probability of them getting a denial letter, goes up exponentially. So, and again, a denial letter, will get the client's money back provided the financing contingency is still in effect, that you canceled the contract while the financing contingency is still in play. So that's the financing contingency. It should be on every buyer's. It should be like right here, like a big sticky in your head. That day comes and goes. Think of it. That day comes and goes. Your person doesn't get their loan. Now they're out. They're out the inspection money. They're out the appraisal. They may be out some other fees with the lender, and then you lost their deposit. Yep, you lost them their deposit. There's no excuse. This is all avoidable. It should never happen. So, okay. So let's move on from the So that's the financing contingency to what changed when we had this training before, but again, let's have it again. It's very important. So, what changed was prior to April, it used to be loan commitment, and it was 45 days. So you had 45, that was the default in the contract unless you filled it in differently or it got filled in differently. Now it's 30 days. It used to say loan commitment. The loan commitment was a letter from the lender saying they got the loan, but maybe there's some exceptions. Now it's no longer loan commitment, it's loan approval. So they have to actually be approved, okay, on that 30th day or whatever is in there. So, and then if they're not approved, if you forget to do that, and they are approved, but you forgot to send them that email, then the seller on the 31st day can kick you out. They can cancel the contract on you. Think of how bad that is. Your guy actually got the loan, but you messed up, forgot to send that email, and they had a cash buyer at a higher price. They're just waiting to boot you out because you don't really understand what you're doing. Big problem. So again, every time you're working with a buyer that's getting financing, when that financing approval date is due, you have to send an email to the listing agent saying we got the loan, or we didn't get the loan and we're backing out, or we're asking for an extension. We're asking to extend that loan approval date because you don't have the approval. And again, you're not. Sometimes they may give you the approval, they may not. I mean, they may give you the extension, they may not. But you're always protecting your buyer. So that's, that's the biggest change. There's also now, what constitutes, kind of an acceptable, they're a little bit more due diligent on, what the buyer has to do, to consider having, applied. They have to get the lender the stuff in a timely manner. That's changed a little bit, but that's really the two biggest changes are, that it's now 30 days instead of 45 days. It's now loan approval instead of loan commitment. And then third thing is that, if you don't notify the listing agent that, they've got the loan or they've been denied the loan, hopefully you've let them know so your client gets their money back. But if they've gotten the loan and you don't let them know, they have 3 days, they can boot you out. After the third day, that evaporates for the seller. So that, the financing commitment, I mean, it's one of the main things as a buyer's agent. I always tell people, like, oh, when I meet them, I'm trying to get them as my, my client. Oh, I'm going to make sure you don't overpay. I'm going to make sure it goes smooth. I'm going to have you turn on to my my lenders, my inspectors, and I'm going to make sure your deposits are protected. Like, in your mind, you're protecting their deposit. Again, if you don't understand the financing commitment and, and that date goes by, you didn't really do that. So it's fairly simple. It's just something you have to, be aware of. Valerie has a question.
Yeah, I have a question. So my client got the pre-approval letter. Is the pre-approval one document separate from the approval? This is my first deal.
Right. Yeah.
Sure
The pre-approval is really, there's no regulation under pre-approvals. Different lenders do different things to pre-approve somebody. Somebody can go and tell their lender, I make $80,000 a year. They get pre-approved, then come find out, when they give their tax returns, their wife had a Mary Kay business and wrote off $15,000. So now they really only look like they make $65,000, and that pre-approval isn't so good, and they may not be able to get the loan, right? So pre-approval is different than actually being approved for the loan. Pre-approval, you're not fully underwritten, right? They haven't gone and done everything. When this is loan approval, you've been fully vetted, fully underwritten. There is nothing that, in anybody's opinion, is going to cause this loan not to go through. So that's the difference. And again, as I mentioned, a lot of times what happens on, some people, they're like, just that example, right, I just gave. If the lender hasn't gotten their tax return yet, because, then they don't know this. So they're all thinking it's good, but then, but they have to have their tax returns, and then they also have to get their tax transcript to make sure what the person gave them actually is what they sent into the IRS. So the loan approval, and that's what counts now, they're basically fully underwritten, and you've almost got the clear to close in essence. Now again, you might not have the clear to close, so then it's a discussion with the lender. Of that approval, right? They don't have to give it to you, but you can ask. Step 2, you can cancel, right? Get their money back. Step 3, or number 3, go naked. And again, it's your client's call. They get to decide. Those are the 3 options. Those are the only 3 options. Go naked means this: you don't get the loan, you're forfeiting your deposit, period. I mean, you can try not to sign, the release, but in essence, you'll lose. That contingency is gone. You don't have it anymore. So it's those 3 things: extension, cancel, go naked. Without, the contingency's evaporated, you're basically a cash buyer at that point. If you don't have the cash, and you can get the cash as, a loan, and you have to close. If you don't close, you lose your deposit. Is that clear?
Yeah. So like typically, how long it takes for the approval? Like pretty close to the closing?
Well, it takes 30. Well, here's the thing too. Again, like when your client goes with some lender you don't know, right, or some lender who has a reputation of never delivering on time. you've upped your odds of problems, right? Because they're not going to get there for you at the end, and you got to go through the 3 steps then, right? Cancel, extend, or naked, you know. No financing contingency anymore. So yeah, I mean, it takes 30 days. I mean, again, you know, if you've worked with a lender before, I mean, typically they, you know, most can do it in 30 days. Some they always do it in 30 days. You know, when you're dealing with somebody you've never dealt with before, I mean, you know, you're new, so you have, but I mean, again, like you could say, hey, Phil or Lisa, who do you work with? You know, have they been good? Yeah, go here, like Jeff, you know, and it all, you know, we know they're good. Like, we know they will get it done for us. But when you don't know, because again, a lot of times, you know, your client, they've picked the lender, right? Even though you've said, hey, we never know, these are the bad things, that they still don't really hear you, and they end up going with them, and, you know, it can be a problem. Or just, again, that's why having a good lender and having your clients use those good lenders is important, because, you know, you showed them 50 houses, you know, a previous contract canceled, you've been working with them for months, you finally get them under agreement, you get them through the home inspection, you go all the way to the last day, right? And then the lender doesn't deliver for you, and then, you know, they don't sign the extension, and, you know, maybe it cancels, you know, it just, who needs it, right? We want to make it easy. Rob, any questions? Lisa?
No, but if you don't know the lender, you can call them and ask them how long it's taking them to close.
Oh,
the
you
loan.
definitely want to call. I mean, if you're putting somebody under a contract and you haven't called that lender, you are stupid, because basically you're setting yourself up for problems. Like, maybe they take 45 days and you put 30 days. That's a bad agent. That's somebody who was lazy, didn't call the lender. It takes 5 minutes. Call them up. Hey, how long does it take you to close? You know, oh, it takes 5 weeks. You make it, you know, 38 days. Give yourself a couple extra days. You definitely want to call the lender if you haven't worked with them
And you
before.
can ask them what steps they use to issue their pre-approval. Do they use a desktop underwriter? Do they just ask them some questions and check some boxes on a piece of paper?
Well, that's more when you're the listing agent. I mean, you're the listing agent, the offer comes in, you know, and it's from XYZ, you know, lender. Yeah, call them up and ask them, like, what did you do to pre-approve this person? If it looks, you know, shaky, flimsy, you know, say, hey, look, you know, we'll put you under agreement, but you need to talk to my lender. I need to know that, you know, you're good to go. They need to look at you. I mean, we had one, I mean, we won't mention, it was a large bank. I mean, it was a mess. I mean, basically, the underwriter went on vacation. She didn't tell anybody, so the file sat there for 2 weeks. Finally comes back out, she's back working on it, then they need an extension, it gets extended 2 more weeks. You know, then at the end, they get a denial letter. And then you know, and it was based on some, you know, thing that didn't make a lot of sense. So we sent it over to Jeff, someone we know, and he says this person never should have been pre-approved to begin with. They're like unpre-approvable, but they did. You know, and then, you know, thank goodness in this case the agent protected their deposit all the way through. So, but you know, for the client it's lousy. You know, they think they're going to get a loan, but you know, just so again, like that listing agent, right? He kind of messed up because he didn't call and say, hey, what'd you do? You know, how good are these people? He would have known, you know. They basically I mean, they, you know, a lot of time. See, here's the thing. Pre-approvals, like especially at the big banks. So, right, people go in, they bank there, they want to get a mortgage, they get pre-approved there. 80% of the pre-approvals the big banks do never turn into a transaction. So they don't spend a lot of money and effort and time in pre-approving. They just kind of do, you know, they take. You never know. What did they actually do? Did they look at tax returns, pay stubs? You don't know. But a lot of them, you know, I mean, again, you know, nothing would cancel, right? I mean, if somebody really sort of, you know, meaning the lender, really pre-approved the person when, you know, but things fall apart on financing all the time, you know. Again, when you're I mean, here are the signs of some FHA. Those buyers, for whatever reason, they're more had one of those not get done ever. So to me, they're like as good as cash. But when, you know, so there's certain, you see like which one's greater, and they tend to be like, you know, the FHA folks. You know, why is somebody going FHA? Oh, they've got a bankruptcy, they got a short sale, you know, higher debt to income ratio. So they just, and then again, like which times, you know, you gotta, you know, there's one lender, Bank of America, I'll throw it out there. I mean, like, you know, I'm 0 for 9 or 0 for 7. Oh, I've never seen them once. Like 2 times deals fail, the other, whatever, 5 or 6 times late. Every time. Not one time did they close on time. Not once. So if I'm the listing agent and I have somebody submitting an offer and it's from them, you know, like, what are the odds of it being good? I mean, it might close, but it's. Here's what happens when it doesn't close. The sellers they get antsy. Oh, they need an extension. Why? They've already had 30 days. Oh, they need another extension. You know, and then basically people start to disbelieve that the person's ever going to get it done, and it all kind of makes it not so good. So, any questions from anybody on Facebook Live? All right, you can call me offline, or I'm happy to chat more about this, or if, you know, you're getting close to you know, the financing contingency evaporating or expiring, you know, call me. We'll chat about what we need to do to make sure the client's deposit is protected. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.